always.
Awesome. Today we're tackling literary devices.
Sounds good to me.
We've got this really cool module from the Philippine Department of Education, and honestly, it's incredible.
Oh, cool. I'm excited to see what it has to say.
Yeah, we break it all down. You know, like how writers use these devices to make their writing really powerful. They make you feel something, all of that.
Down into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. And, you know, sometimes people think literary devices and they're like, ugh, that's too technical. But I think once we unpack it, you'll see that it can really change the way you read things. You know,
I agree. It can make reading much more enjoyable and meaningful.
Right. Whether you just love reading or you're trying to write something yourself, this stuff is gold.
Definitely.
Okay, so the module starts off by defining literary devices. It says they're like these special techniques authors use to get their ideas across and just make their writing better.
Right. They're the tools of the trade.
Yeah. And honestly, we use them all the time without even thinking about it. Like, remember when you said someone was as busy as a bee?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Boom. That's a simile right there.
Classic.
You were comparing two totally different things using like or as.
And that's just scratching the surface. There are so many other literary devices out there, each with its own unique effect on the reader.
Exactly. So let's push past those familiar similes and metaphors, and let's get into some of the maybe less common, but still super important devices.
I'm game.
Awesome. So the module mentions this thing called allegory, which I'll admit always sounds kind of scary.
A little bit, yeah.
But I have a feeling you can break it down for us and make it, less intimidating.
Oh, absolutely. Think of it as a story within a story, like a secret message hidden beneath the surface.
Oh, intriguing.
Yeah. And a great example is George Orwell's Animal Farm. Have you read that one?
Oh, I love that book. But I never really thought of it as an allegory.
Well, on the surface, it's about animals rebelling against humans. But when you look closer, it's actually a commentary on the Russian Revolution and, the dangers of totalitarianism.
Whoa. Okay. So it's like the author is using the animal story to talk about real world stuff and big ideas.
Exactly. That's the power of allegory. It lets writers explore really complex, sometimes tough themes in a way that's engaging and makes you think.
That makes a lot of sense. So how can we spot an allegory when we're reading? Any clues?
Good question. One thing to watch for is if the characters and the events seem to represent something beyond their literal meaning. Like, are they symbols for abstract concepts or historical figures?
Okay, so if the animals in Animal Farm are standing in for real political figures, that's like a big red flag that we're dealing with an allegory.
Exactly. And speaking of red flags, not literally, but literary.
Wait.
Allusion. Let's move on to that one.
I've definitely heard that term before, but I'm not totally clear on what it means.
An allusion is like a little shout out or a reference to a person, place, or thing from the real world or another book.
Yeah.
Like the author is winking at you, adding a little something extra without having to spell it all out.
Gotcha.
Like if a character says, he's a real Romeo, that's an allusion to Shakespeare, right?
Yeah.
It instantly brings up images of romance and tragedy, all those layers of meaning just from that one name.
That's cool. So it's like a shortcut to understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of shortcuts, what about colloquialism? The module talks about that one too.
Oh yeah, colloquialisms. Those are the informal words and phrases like slang that we use in everyday conversations.
Right, the stuff that makes writing feel real and relatable.
Exactly. It's like if a character in a book set in the American South says, y'all, you immediately get a sense of where they're from and their culture.
Right, makes sense.
It makes the character feel more real, more grounded.
Okay. And then there's euphemisms, which those feel a bit more delicate.
Oh yeah, euphemisms. You're talking about those roundabout ways of saying something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when we use a milder, less direct phrase for something that might be uncomfortable or taboo, like saying someone passed away instead of died,
It is kind of fascinating how we use language in different ways to get different points across.
It really is. Yeah. And we've only just scratched the surface here. There are so many more literary devices that writers use to create those special effects.
Yeah, for sure. This module has a ton more. But before we move on, I really wanted to touch on two that stood out to me: imagery and tone.
Great choices. Those are super important.
So the module describes imagery as painting pictures with words. Like they give this example, and it's a little intense, but they say, the streets stank of manure, the courtyards of urine.
Whoa. Okay, vivid. Not exactly pleasant, but yeah, definitely paints a picture in your mind.
Right, you can practically smell it. Makes you feel like you're right there in the story.
For sure.
And then there's tone, which is all about the mood or attitude of the writing, right?
Exactly. Tone can be playful, serious, sarcastic, even a little creepy sometimes. It shapes how we feel about the story, how we see the characters and everything that's happening.
Totally. Like a ghost story with a playful tone might not be scary at all. But if it's got that dark, ominous tone, yeah, that'll keep you up at night.
Absolutely. Tone is like the background music of the story, setting the mood and guiding our emotions along the way.
This is all so cool, but before we get lost in the world of literary devices, I wanted to bring it back to you, the listener, for a sec.
Always good to connect with the audience.
Have you ever noticed how your favorite authors use these techniques? Think about a book you've read recently. Can you spot any of the devices we've talked about?
I bet you can. And once you start noticing them, it's like a whole new layer of appreciation for the craft of writing.
Right. And it's not just about appreciating other people's work. Understanding these tools can make you a better writer too.
Absolutely.
But we'll get into that more in a bit. First, let's unpack a few more of these awesome literary devices that the module highlights.
Can't wait. You know, it's amazing how much writers can like pack into a story with just a few words or a sentence.
It's like they're weaving this intricate tapestry,
That's
right?
a great way to put it. And speaking of weaving, the module talks about this thing called foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Where the author drops these little hints about what's going to happen later.
It's like they're setting little traps.
Exactly.
Leading us down a path, making us wonder what's next.
Creates that delicious suspense, you know.
Totally keeps you hooked.
Makes you feel like you're part of the mystery.
Oh, totally. And then there's the flip side of that, flashbacks.
Oh, yeah, those trips down memory lane.
Where suddenly we're back in the past learning about the characters. We're getting some backstory.
Right, it's like piecing together a puzzle, you know. Each flashback reveals a little more.
Adds another layer to the story.
And sometimes throws in a twist you didn't see coming.
I love how flashbacks can change your whole perspective on a character.
For sure.
Now, symbolism. That one always gets me thinking.
Oh, yeah, symbolism. It's like a secret language.
It is. The author's hiding messages beneath the surface.
Right, it's not just a pretty picture.
It's deeper than that.
It could be an emotion, a big idea, even something about society.
Like when you see a dove, you think peace.
Exactly. Or a red rose for love.
But sometimes the same symbol can mean different things depending on the story.
Which makes it even more interesting.
You really have to pay attention.
And the module doesn't just tell you what these devices are. It actually shows you how they work.
Oh, how so?
It uses real examples from poems and stories.
Cool.
So you can see how writers use these tools to get the effect they want.
That's super helpful. I remember this one line from The Raven.
The Raven.
Yeah, by Edgar Allan Poe. It goes, "While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping."
Oh, yeah. I love Poe.
The repetition of the end sound makes you feel sleepy, adds to that spooky vibe.
Oh, totally. That's alliteration, right?
Exactly. Repetition of sounds at the start of words.
Creates a rhythm, sets the mood.
It's like music with words.
It is. And speaking of sounds, how about onomatopoeia?
Ah, yes. The words that sound like what they mean.
Exactly. Like buzz, crackle, whisper.
It's like you can hear the story come to life.
Right. You're right there in the moment.
Onomatopoeia can be whimsical or dramatic.
Depends what the author is going for.
It's incredible how much goes into writing, you know?
Every word matters.
Every phrase has a purpose.
And understanding literary devices helps you appreciate all that work.
It's like being let in on a secret.
A behind-the-scenes pass to the magic of writing.
Exactly. But we're here for you, the listener.
Right.
Why should you care about all this?
Oh, first of all, it can make you a better reader.
How so?
You start to notice things. Think about why the author did what they did.
It's like a whole new level of engagement.
Totally.
And once you see these devices in books, you'll see them everywhere.
Oh, for sure.
In movies, TV shows, even everyday talk.
It's like learning a new language, the language of storytelling.
It helps you understand the world a little better.
And it can make you a better writer, too.
Oh, definitely. It's like you have this toolbox full of tricks.
You pick the right tool for the job.
Want mystery. Foreshadowing. Realistic dialogue. Colloquialisms.
Powerful emotions. You gotta nail that imagery and tone.
So many options. But we haven't covered everything yet.
No, we haven't.
There's still more in this module.
Oh, yeah. More fun to be had.
Let's dive into some more of these cool devices, the ones that add even more flavor to writing.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so we've talked about similes and metaphors and foreshadowing and symbolism, but there's still more, right?
Oh, yeah, there's always more. This module just keeps on giving.
It really does. Like it mentions irony,
Oh, yeah, irony, that's a good one.
where things happen that are like the opposite of what you'd expect.
Exactly. It can be funny or really tragic.
Yeah.
Depends how it's used.
And then there's hyperbole,
Ah, yes, the art of exaggeration.
like taking things to the extreme to prove a point.
Exactly, like, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse.
Right. You're not really going to eat a horse,
Probably not.
but it gets the point across.
Makes it memorable.
Totally.
Oh,
Like they're bending the rules of language to make a statement.
They are. And then there's personification, giving human qualities to things that aren't human.
Oh, I love that one. Like the sun smiled down on us.
Yeah. Or the wind howled through the trees.
It just brings things to life, you know?
It does. Makes it more vivid and engaging.
And these devices, they're not just for stories and poems, right?
No, not at all. You see them everywhere.
Like in speeches,
News articles.
even just everyday conversations,
Think about those powerful metaphors politicians use.
or those sarcastic headlines that make you laugh.
It's like you've got this secret decoder ring for the world.
You can see through the words and understand the real meaning.
Exactly. And the more you understand these devices, the more you appreciate how language works.
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners today?
I think it's that literary devices, they're not just about being a bookworm.
Right. It's bigger than that?
It's about being a critical thinker, a smarter reader of the news, a better communicator.
Yeah. It's about understanding the power of words, how they can shape our thoughts and feelings.
Even our actions.
Language is a powerful tool.
Right. It is. It's constantly changing and evolving.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes.
And hopefully our listeners' eyes, too.
This module from the Philippine Department of Education is a great starting point, but there's so much more to discover.
Yeah, a whole world of literary devices out there.
So keep reading, keep writing, keep playing with words.
And most importantly, stay curious.
That's it for our deep dive into literary devices.
Hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you learned a lot and maybe even got inspired to try out some of these techniques in your own writing.